Like, this is what I'm going to lecture on, what kind of quiz questions or exam questions or project can come from the stuff that I want them to read or I'm going to lecture about. In actuality, the best way to do this is think first, what do you want your students to be able to do at the end? What is that skill? And that's the objective. So an objective should be something measurable, something that you can actually witness or measure in some way. That's usually not an exam, but it's something to understand is not a good objective, because how do you see if a student understood something? But if you have something like compare and contrast or analyze the difference between, and sometimes it sounds like semantics as the verb choice, but in actuality that objective will impact your next step, which is what your assessment's going to be. So if you say they should be able to distinguish between the characteristics of X and Y, your assessment should make them show you how these two things are different. And then once you've done that, you determine what your assessment's going to be. Now you need to figure out, okay, so what information do I need to give to the students in order to get them from not knowing anything perhaps to being able to do this activity. In a hybrid class, this is really help you figure out where do these things best fit. So if students can do something on their own, maybe the assessment does go online after class, and maybe you determine that the kind of content that the student needs, they can't understand on their own. So that has to go in the face-to-face experience. But if you go to the backwards design model, which is start with the objectives, move the assessments, and then last do the content, you also remove the fluff. So I worked with Shelley's husband, Eric, when we developed IET 215, which is kind of an online module inside a hybrid course. And he always told me how his students would leave his class with their ears bleeding, and he was always worried that they didn't get anything. So what we did, we started with the objectives, figured out what do they need to do at the end, went to the assessment. What you realize with the content after looking at the assessments is that he was giving them so much fluff that that's why they weren't learning anything, because there's just too much in there, too much noise. And this is something that I found in a lot of research I've done, the ping pong analogy. In a hybrid course, things should flow back and forth. So the things that are online should flow into your face-to-face, and the things that are face-to-face should be online. They shouldn't be seen as two separate components. So an assessment that you do online should be referenced in some way when they come to class. Or if you do an activity in class, they should follow up and do something online. So if you figured out what your objectives are, you figured out how you want to assess these pieces, then you can start figuring out that flow, that back and forth